Hawkes released the EP The Water Was Deep in 2017, and since then she has released the singles Just Kids and They Say Love. Her latest single is Black Dog. Hello, Mandy.
Hi, Sophie. How you going?
I'm very well, thank you. And I thought I'd start at the beginning of your musical life and ask you how it began.
So it would have been, I was probably 7 or 8 maybe, and I think I started playing the piano. We had a piano. My mum used to play a little bit, so I think I did that for maybe, I was probably 8 maybe 6 months or a year, and then I refused to practice. So that was the end of my piano lessons. And then I was so stubborn, I would just sit there and not do anything to see out the half hour, whatever time I was meant to play for. And then I kind of would just muck around and do what I wanted without anyone telling me what to do. And then I think I got into the recorder about year 4, and that progressed.
As did everyone, I think.
That's right. I loved it. I had like a little book where I wrote out songs that I could play.
Right.
And I'd carry it around with me. And then I progressed to the flute in year 6, maybe year 5 or 6. And I was a dedicated flautist for quite a number of years. Yeah.
Right. So that was, so would you consider yourself a flautist primarily, or now that you've moved on to other things?
I'm pretty bad now. That's the only instrument I've learned properly, like was, classically trained and did all the exams and all that, could play to a decent standard. Yeah. Everything else I'm just kind of a hack at.
But I would imagine that doing all of that, learning to read music, learning to that standard, exams and everything, well, I think it probably facilitates you learning other instruments like guitar, in that you're starting from a different place than knowing absolutely nothing.
Totally. I'm so grateful that I had that foundation and that background in like reading music and musical theory, because it makes sense to me. Whereas, often I'll play with people and we can play together, but they have no idea of like what notes they're playing, which I guess that works for them. But I like knowing how they all fit together and how it works, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Because music theory is, of course, a world unto itself. But I also have a theory that, separate to music theory, that if you learn to read music quite young, you can't play by ear, because that was the case. I learned piano from quite a young age and could read music, but I can't play by ear to save myself.
Well, so this is, I think I managed to do the crossover somehow, because I learnt, the same, learning to read the music, but then I played music at church in like the church band.
Right.
I'd play the flute and I'd get bored, so I'd start making up parts, like harmonies and different bits and pieces. And then I think, and because I'd stopped doing the formal piano, then I kind of worked out how to do it by ear.
Right.
But there's a lot of doodling in the background of the church band.
Right. Well, I think you've disproved my theory as well. So does that mean you went back to piano?
Oh, but only as a hack, like only to be able to sing or play along with people. So I can play, like, it'll be a song and it'll be in a key or whatever. I can play along like that. Right. But I can't, if I had the patience and discipline to sit down and learn properly, I could, but I don't have the patience or the discipline. Yeah.
So of course it's difficult as a singer-songwriter to play the flute, because your mouth is otherwise occupied. So at a certain point in time, you had to get a different instrument. When was that?
So guitar, I think at about 14. Yeah. So my dad played guitar. Right. So there were guitars lying around. He was left-handed though, so I started trying to learn left-handed, and then I started playing upside down. Right. And then I got sick of that. So I dug out, Mum had some old guitar with 5 strings in the cupboard. Right. So I dug that out and fixed it up as best I could to be my guitar. Yeah. It's much easier.
And did guitar make sense as an instrument, given that you'd been playing something quite different?
Yeah. Like, which is interesting now you say that. I had I knew what the notes in the chords that I was playing, but on guitar it took me a long time to be like, point to a specific spot on the fret and go, that's a C, like, you know.
Yeah.
But it made, yeah, I don't know, I just kind of picked it up and learnt the chords, and yeah.
So obviously when you were growing up, there was a fair bit of church music, but what else were you listening to?
Yeah, so there's a lot of Christian contemporary music, and then grunge. So when I started playing guitar, I was obsessed with Nirvana, like the Unplugged in New York album. So all the first songs I learned were off that. And then I got right into Smashing Pumpkins, and I went, I think I borrowed, my boyfriend at the time you could buy tablature books at down at Rocking Horse or something.
Yeah.
I took it to school and I photocopied the entire book, and I would sit there for hours learning all the guitar parts at night. Yeah.
Back in the good old days when, yes, you could buy tablature books and sheet music.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So would you say that those artists have had a big influence on you as an artist now, or have your tastes changed as you've started to create your own music?
Yeah, my tastes have changed. I mean, at the same time, I was like, Dad would play a lot of music, so it was all like Neil Young, Bob Dylan, the Beatles, Paul Kelly, that kind of stuff. And then, yeah, like I loved Veruca Salt, and so when I first started playing music, I had a distortion pedal, an electric guitar, and yep, that was kind of did that for quite a while with a bit of acoustic. But then as I progressed, I got more and more acoustic and more country, I would say. Yeah.
You mentioned Veruca Salt, and I don't know if you've heard the 2 solo albums by Nina Gordon from Veruca Salt.
I had the first one, yeah.
The second one's also really good. Very hard to get. It's not on streaming, so you have to track down a CD. Okay. But yeah, they're both great.
Oh, they were such heroes of mine. I think Louise Post was my hero. I remember. Did you ever see them?
No.
I saw them once in at festival. Yeah, it was amazing.
Well, there you go. But yeah, I remember, because I don't think I was a big Veruca Salt fan, but then Nina Gordon's first album came out. I was like, this is really great pop.
Yeah.
Yeah,
no, she's amazing.
An excellent ear for it. Now, your bio contains the line, after spending years in a musical wasteland, Mandy Hawkes began to write songs again. So obviously wasteland wasn't a place without music, because you've clearly been playing music most of your life. So what does the wasteland refer to?
Yeah, well, so all my, I guess, teenage years. So once I started playing guitar, then I was playing music a lot of the time, all through my teens until about 21 or so. And then I kind of just stopped. I mean, I still played a bit, but I didn't play much. I got really a variety of reasons, but just like lost all self-confidence in playing in public. And, you know, a few people said a few comments that I took to heart and it just destroyed me. And I didn't play in public for a long time, and I was busy doing other stuff. A lot of being out in the bush, and you know, where you weren't coming home to your instruments and stuff like that. So I kind of stopped for about 10 years probably, I think. Yeah, until I started again. I
mean, given that there is so much music in your life and has been from such a young age, did it feel like a part of you was missing, or it just felt like, well, this is the phase I'm in now?
Yeah, a bit of both. Like, it always felt like there was a bit missing. Like, which, if I don't have music in my life, I get that feeling, like when I don't play for a few weeks, or, you know, don't do gigs, or I'm not writing or creating, there's this whole section that's missing. But I think when I didn't do it for so long, I got used to not feeling that feeling. It just became the new norm, and I guess I filled my life with other things, which I enjoyed, but was not, like, it was always missing. A bit. Yeah.
And so what inspired you to come back to it?
I met, so I had a couple of kids, and then met through mutual friends, met a friend and then another friend, and like we get together for, you know, a baby get together thing.
Mm-hmm.
And it'd be like, oh yeah, I used to play music, and the other, yeah, I used to play music too. And then we're like, all right, why don't we get together, and we both like the Waifs and the Be Good Tanyas, or mad Be Good Tanya fans. So we get together and just play a few songs, and then that kind of evolved into, it was like once we started playing, we're like, all right, we want to, we're going to make a band and we're going to get gigs. And so that evolved into this beautiful 3-piece, which was all of us kind of re-emerging into music. So yeah, it was a really special time, fraught with anxiety and trying to get out there in the world, but we had lots of fun. Yeah.
Well, particularly because it sounds like a big part of the reason why you left music behind for a while was what some people had said to you, which is, I always feel like when people are saying that stuff, it's like, oh, if you're not actually getting up on stage yourself, then keep it to yourself, because it is really hard to put yourself out there.
Yeah, it's so hard. Yeah. He's putting himself out there to get, shot down by anyone that wants to. And of course, any creative person has an extra dose of sensitivity, so they're not so good to, for dealing with that stuff.
So when you started performing again with the trio, were you nervous for quite a long time? Or maybe you're always nervous and that's a good thing?
Oh, I was nervous. Now I still get nervous beforehand, but once I start playing, I just kind of, drift off into daydreaming. But then I was nervous the whole time. And then, there's this internal dialogue going on inside your head while you're singing, like this self-critiquing thing of every note that's coming out of your mouth. And that's not a very relaxing way to perform.
Yeah.
And I feel like my voice would get really like my throat would get quite tight, and but then the more we did it, it just got easier each time. And then but after I don't know how many gigs, 10 gigs or so, or it was fun and you could relax.
And you're a really heartfelt communicator, not just with your lyrics, but with your voice. So I'm wondering how you developed that singing voice, because clearly you had other instruments to use. Voice is a new instrument after those.
Yeah. I think it's funny because I was never a singer, and had this story about I can't sing, and I would only sing because I'm playing guitar and I've got a song that I've written. And then going back to like previous music, I remember I would listen to Billy Corgan and the Smashing Pumpkins. He was so inspiring because he's not like his voice, he's not a singer. He's not like this amazing voice, yet he would sing these epic songs that he's written, and people loved it. And I remember hearing him and like, oh, all right, if he can be a singer, if he can sing, then like it's like I have permission to sing, despite not being a singer, which might sound stupid, but that's kind of how I felt at the time. And then I think just the more I sung, like it was only after, so once, we started the band with the mums and started singing, only after doing that for like a year or a couple of years, even longer, like I remember I got to a point once and I was just like, oh, I can sing now. It's not this whole thing. It's just the thing I do now. And I feel comfortable with my voice, and I've accepted how it sounds, and I'll just use it how it is. And I can do that. Yeah.
Do you think that came in tandem with songwriting, so that you had these songs and these stories you wanted to communicate, and perhaps the voice was a way to do that, so you stopped thinking about whether your voice was technically what you thought it should be or not, and just realized it was a vehicle for communication?
Yeah, totally. And I think and also thinking about all the singers that I like listening to, like you like listening to them because they sound like them, not because they sound like a particular ideal, singer.
Yeah.
So I think, just becoming okay with that and utilizing it.
Now, your EP covered some big but actually fundamental themes, namely death and the afterlife. And I'm wondering if being an artist or being a songwriter, more specifically, is how you actually reckon with life on earth, if that makes sense.
Oh, totally. I don't know what you do if you can't write a song to, like, it always feels like if I've got a thing that I'm going through or something that's bothering me or something I'm trying to reconcile in my mind, it's such a big part of that process is putting it into a song, being able to accurately articulate what the feeling or the what you're thinking about a thing is, and then singing it. And it's like each time first you kind of package it up in this song, and that's a big step to be able to get it out of your brain and on into something. And then it's like the more you sing it, the more you understand it, or the more you kind of shift something, if it's, you know, a difficult emotion, or yeah, it's kind of a way of getting things out and on. Yeah.
So by the time you perform the song and or record it, does it feel like it's done its work for you, as in that process, whatever purpose it was serving for you, is complete and now you're handing it off to the audience?
Yeah, kind of. Yeah, largely. But then when you sing them again, like even ones that are, you know, 5 years old, or it's something that's an event that happened, you know, back in the past, sometimes you sing it again and it's just, you're right back there and you're feeling all the things, and it's still, I guess all these things just go on with you, even though they sit in the background. And then singing them kind of taps back into these feelings and experiences that you had. Which is, I don't know, it's kind of nice. Like, even if they're painful, it's kind of, yeah, I don't know, nice to revisit. If that makes any sense.
Yeah, well, because it's, I mean, it could be traumatic depending on what the song is, but I guess it would be reassuring to know that vein is always running, if that makes sense. Like you can still get back into it at any time.
And it's even like a gauge of, like, I know some songs I've written, the first time I performed them, I would cry. Right. And then further down the track, you can sing the song and you know when you're crying, and it's like this gauge of like, oh, look how far I've come, you know, or how much that's in the past now.
Yeah.
Even though I can feel the emotion of the song. Yeah, it's not all consuming.
So we'll talk about your latest single, which is Black Dog. What was the inspiration for it?
That was one of the first songs I wrote when I started writing songs again. Yeah, I don't know, it just kind of came out. Like, I think melancholy and depression, like, it's something that's always been there for me, like for almost as long as I can remember, and it's kind of just always hanging around, and sometimes it's not there, but often it's just hanging around, and, you know, I've gotten better at managing it and not letting it consume me. But it's kind of not, it's always nearby, not too far away. So yeah, I think it's just kind of about acknowledging that, and yeah, just kind of came out. Yeah.
But interestingly, it's not a melancholic song to listen to it. It's
That's
actually,
one of my most upbeat songs.
Yeah. So was that a conscious choice? As in, like, did you have a set of lyrics and think, I'm going to frame these in a different way?
Yeah, not really. It just kind of came out catchy and yeah, upbeat.
Yeah, because it is, and it's, you know, it's almost a toe tapper.
I know. It's about as toe tapping as it gets for me. Yeah.
And you co-produced this and your other singles with Jordan Power, who works in northern New South Wales. How did you first start working with him?
He had worked with a few friends of mine, so he'd been recommended. So I just went and I had this whole, well, we did a whole album, bunch of songs. Just went and met him and thought, yeah, he's just a wonderful human, and he's, you know, he likes rootsy, folky country kind of music. He's really good at that. And yeah, so we just all went and recorded a bunch of songs in a few days with him. Yeah,
So that album is still to be released.
Yeah.
So have you set firm plans, or you just, because we're still in an uncertain time in the post-pandemic, maybe not quite post-pandemic world. So
Yeah.
we just see how things go.
Because I kind of, so I guess I've been sitting on it for a year. When did I? Or a bit longer. So I release a single, release another one. I better release another one. I haven't done much, but I really need to just get it out in the world. So I haven't set a date or anything, but that's my next kind of thing to focus on, because it's almost coming up to 18 months ago that we finished it. So yeah, it's time.
Well, you could just do a Beyonce and release a surprise album.
Yeah. So no one would listen to it because I'm not Beyonce.
Well, horses for courses, I'm sure people would listen to it. Just they just need to know it exists. So you played at quite a few festivals, and including some folk festivals and some country music festivals. Is there any festival that you haven't played at yet that you'd really like to?
Oh, heaps. Yeah. I love to play at Dashville. That's my love to play there. Where else? I'm trying to line up some Tamworth. I've done a couple of random things at Tamworth, but not proper like band shows. I think what else there is. I'll play at any festival, really. Yeah, Woodford would be great. But many.
just any festival bookers are watching.
That's right. I'm not picky. Yeah.
And I should also say, just the question before, I was saying, people if people know about the album, they can listen to it. It is the challenge of an independent artist, of course, trying to get the word out, and also at a time when everyone's on social media. It's a lot to manage. I think there are a lot of different facets of being an artist now that didn't exist even 5 years ago that you have to think about.
Oh, completely. Yeah. I find just all the promoting and the social media, like I know it's just something you just have to do, and you've just got to keep doing it. So that's probably where I get a bit slack, and I'm not very consistent with it. Yeah.
Well, I actually wouldn't say it's slack so much as just it is really hard to keep track of everything, particularly when you have other things in your life like family, household to run.
And work and all the things. Exactly. Yeah.
So as I mentioned, you're in Northern New South Wales, or maybe I didn't mention that at the start. I said Jordan was in Northern New South Wales, but you are as well. What's the live music scene like? Because there are quite a few artists up there. Are there enough venues for you all?
Yeah, there's a lot of live music actually. So there's heaps of I guess there's a lot of markets to start with. They all have music, from farmers markets to the big Sunday markets. Then there's a number of pubs and bolos and clubs that have Friday night, Saturday, Sunday afternoon session. There's a lot of music actually, a lot of places to play. There's also a lot of musicians. Right. So there's kind of people out playing everywhere, which is it's awesome.
So given that you were in a trio, you're now a solo artist, but you have a band, as you mentioned, are you inclined though to get back into an arrangement like a trio, or is what you're doing now that's set your path?
Yeah. Well, I guess now so we did the trio, one of them moved away, then the two of us kept playing for a bit, and then we kind of stopped playing together. So then I was kind of forced to do my own thing, and which was really good because it forced me to stand on my own 2 feet and be like, this is what I'm doing. And then I gradually met people and collected people that would play with me. So now one of the women from the trio plays with me quite regularly, and then we've got this other collection, like a guitarist and drummer, and we had a bass player but he moved away, and an occasional fiddle player. So it's just kind of collect people who will play with me. Yeah.
Well, it sounds like from that part of the world, if anyone's going as a tourist for whatever reason, they could basically do a gig guide tour. If it's a long weekend, there's lots of music to see in that part of Australia.
Definitely. Yeah, it definitely is.
And do you get out to see much of it?
A little bit. Yeah, depends what's on. Where I live, down the road, there's a really great pub that gets touring artists through. So it'll be like Sydney, Brisbane, and this little country pub. So that's pretty special. Like Frazee Ford came there the other week, and so I go to a few things there. Yeah, it just depends. But between often I'm looking after kids, and it's not that many nights to go out and see stuff.
Yeah. No, I was just curious because it's a part of the world where I have noticed that before, where you can have pubs that have these acts that just turn up that would normally only play capital cities. So it is a rich area for that.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, no, it's pretty great like that. You get a lot of the advantages of the city without being in the city.
Yeah. Well, that's a good advertisement for Northern New South Wales, but I am going to leave it there because it is not the middle of the night, but it's getting quite late. So your latest single is Black Dog. There's an album coming at some point in time, and hopefully you'll let us know about that. And people can keep an eye on your website, perhaps, for other music.
Yeah.
Excellent. Well, Mandy, it was great to talk to you.
Yeah, thanks, Sophie. I appreciate it.
Bye.